Yo, what's up, people? I got a great podcast episode to drop for you today. My friend Tristan Lipschutz, she's going to break down her market out in Reno, Nevada. We're going to talk about some Lake Tahoe mansions that her and her husband sell, what the dynamic is like for her and her husband to work together, and all that good stuff. If you're new to the channel and if you get any value out of this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. But without further ado, here is Real Estate is Local with my friend, Tristan Lipschutz. All right, Tristan Lipschutz, are you with me?
I'm with you.
Listening audience, that is how you pronounce her last name. She is a fantastic realtor coming to you from what? Northern Nevada?
Northern Nevada.
That's what I'm talking about, right? We're going to talk Reno. We're going to talk Lake Tahoe. We're going to talk all those beautiful homes and cool videos you share on socials. But before we get into all that, let's talk about your journey, right? So, like, describe your journey into real estate. How did you get here on this podcast with me today?
Well, my journey, I guess, started when I was pregnant with our daughter. My husband, Andy, he has been a realtor for the past 6 years. And when I got pregnant with our daughter, he wanted me to join him in his real estate career. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not a salesperson. And so I had her. I was working a couple corporate jobs, working at hospital in Truckee. And then the more I saw him doing what he was doing, I was realizing, like, no, he's not a salesperson. He is helping people sell homes or buy homes and helping people make their goals happen, not trying to sell them on anything. So it made me want to get into it. And when I was 40 weeks pregnant with our son, I took the real estate state exam and national exam and I passed. So here we are today, 2.5 years later.
So that's where the bio comes from, right? Right? Like, read the Instagram bio because that's what it is, like, literally.
Yep. The mom, the wife, the realtor.
Like, in that order, I'm sure too, right? Like, that's
Yep.
awesome. So let's break down like that dynamic, right? So you obviously started, he drags you in, great journey. We could fast forward and we'll talk a lot about the market and the different things you've done there that really makes you stand out. But you got to tell me, what's it like working with your husband, like, as a team? Is there any friction? Like, does he handle some of the stuff? Do you handle some of the other stuff?
Yeah, I feel like we have a really good dynamic because we bring so many different skill sets to the table and we really like hone in on each other's strengths. And so where, Andy may not be the best in certain situations with clients, I might thrive there and vice versa. So we really play off each other's strengths there. We streamline our processes together. So like I'm really good with the emotional side of things and he's really good with the tactical side of things. And so we just kind of balance with each other's strengths. But I mean, it's really easy for us to work together, to be honest. I think it's because we were together for 8 years before
Gotcha.
we
Okay.
actually got into business together. And during those 8 years, we spent a lot of time like working on ourselves and our relationship and everything too. So we're like very strong in that
Gotcha.
demeanor. So yeah, no,
That's
it's
awesome.
great. I love working with
So, like,
him. I think
would
he
you say, like, sorry for the little shout out to my cat, Tony. He just will not leave me alone. He just
is so
headbutted his
cute.
way into the office. So, gotta love him. So, would you say, like, that makes your partnership unique, right? Like, do you go around and, like, look at it that way? Like, hey, we're a working couple. Or do you look at it like, hey, this is just kind of the same thing that we've always done and just kind of adds that component to have, like, your own work life balance in a way?
Yeah, I think it's really important to our clients that we are a husband and wife couple because we bring so many different skill sets, like I said, to the table. And we also are available more than an average mom or dad or just average Joe realtor because, at all points of time, like one of us is available for our clients, whether it's, Andy's watching the kids while I'm out doing showings or, maybe we both have showings for the day and we've got a sitter. There's always going to be at least one of us available, if not two. So I think that sets us apart.
That's so cool, right? Like, you're able now, is that part of, like, is that part of your presentation? Do you guys go and do, like, listing appointments together generally?
Yeah, so we actually, when I first started, I think we spent a lot more time going to the appointments together. And it was more so like I'm learning and I want to make sure I'm soaking in all of the information and all of the education that Andy can bring to the table, but also so our clients would be able to see that we're this powerhouse couple working together. We're always here for you. And then the more that we started working together, like, a year and a half into our business, we kind of realized like we can divide and conquer and our clients will respect that. And so now Andy will go to a listing appointment or I will go to a listing appointment and we totally divide and conquer and we just explain to them, yep, Andy's out handling and, working with our other clients right now and I'm here for you and that's what you get as well. One of us is always going to be available for you.
Sure. Right. So it's like that is almost you're a 2 for 1.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, you're getting 2 agents and the benefit of having the availability of that and the knowledge of both with one. So that's super unique. That's awesome. So, like, my last question on like you two and your business behind the scenes, right? Like, do you have a funny moment like behind the scenes between the two of you where you were just like overwhelmed? Like, was there like a crazy week where you had a bunch of stuff with the kids and then you had a bunch of real estate stuff come up? Because clients love to do things right when you're on vacation or when your kids need something or your cats or whoever in your life.
Every day. Yeah, I mean, every day of our lives is always like, there's something that comes up, but we handle it. And I guess one thing that speaks to me is last year, Andy and I had a home that was sitting on the market a little bit longer than average days on market. So I think it was like 40 days it had been listed for at that point. And we go to Mexico. 3 days in, we get an offer on it. So, it always happens like that, right? Whenever you leave for a vacation or you get sick. Yesterday, I was actually sick at home in bed all day, and my phone was blowing up. I wrote an offer. I sent out a signed listing agreement, like one thing after the other. But that's the perks
Yeah.
of being a realtor as well as when I'm sick in bed, I can still work from the comfort of my own bed.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get you there. It's a perk, but it's also a drawback, right? Because it's like, man, like kind of hard to take a day off sometimes because you can just bring your laptop with you and get whatever you need done, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
hard thing. So, all right, last part about your real estate journey, and then we'll kind of roll into the market minute where we talk about Lake Tahoe, we talk about Reno, we talk about, really where you shine in the area you love to talk about, right? But like one quick brief moment for people that are listening that you like that you're super proud of that you maybe haven't talked about like in a video or anything like that with your real estate journey. It's personal, not necessarily the two of you to be proud of, but you particularly.
Think for me, one of my proudest moments is not really related to production because we are doing pretty good on that side of things. But one of my proudest moments is I actually had a listing where my clients had raised their two little boys there, and they had this on the trim of one of their doors was a height chart. And they were almost in tears talking about, I wish we could bring this with us, that sort of thing. And so when they moved, like a week before closing, I got a handyman to go in there and remove the door frame and create a picture frame out of it. And I mailed it to them. And I told her, I said, FaceTime me as soon as you get that package in the mail. I sent you something. And so she did. And she just burst into tears. And it was like the most fulfilling and like the reason why I'm here. So that
Cool.
was one of my proudest moments.
That's super cool. So, like, I always joke with my girlfriend, right? Because she's always got like the knack for stuff like that. Like, I literally wouldn't even thought of that. That's such a good idea. What a unique gift for a client to get. That's awesome. I'm sure they love you forever after that, right?
Yeah, the review was so sweet. The review was like a full like paragraph long on Zillow.
There you go, right? But that, I hate to say it, but like, there are sometimes you have some weeks you have in this business where it's like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, cause some people just like to use you as a doormat, right? But then you get that one client and it might not even be oftentimes it's not the one that is like the biggest paying client in the bunch or your pipeline or something like that. But it's just like the person is just so like effortlessly amazing throughout the transaction. And you look at yourself and they thank you at the end and they're so proud of like where they're at. And you're just like, that's what it's about.
Right. 1,000%.
It's like heroin. It just keeps you going. It keeps you in it, right? It just like once you do that once, you're
I
hooked.
know, but
I don't know. That's what I'm told. That's what I'm told. So, all right. Enough about this Nevada style talk, right? Let's talk about your market though, in particular. Let's talk about
Let's talk about the market minute a little bit, right? So this is a segment where I like to help out my fellow real estate investors, and I also like to help out potential referral partners for you find you, right? So let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about Reno first, right? Like, well, actually, I guess which one do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about Tahoe or do you want to talk about Reno?
We can talk about Reno first. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go market trends, right? Like, let's talk the pricing. What am I seeing inventory wise? Like, what type of market? Just shoot from the hip. No firm numbers, anything like that.
I'll have firm numbers.
Well, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm good with firm numbers. But Reno right now, we've actually had it's 5.8% increase year over year in the median sales price
Gotcha.
of 640K, which our market is very strong. And one of the reasons for that is because, and a lot of people don't know this, but I find it pretty interesting, is the majority of land in Nevada is actually federally owned. So that's what it's called, BLM land, Bureau of Land Management. And so that land is not buildable unless the federal government decides to sell it off one day. I want to say it's somewhere around like 70% of all of Nevada land is owned federally. And
Perfect.
so that being said, there's limited land to build on for, investors and developers, private companies, commercial, residential, everything in between. And in Reno specifically, we have 2 months of inventory.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that is a very tight market for our economic growth, for
Yeah.
sure.
So tell me, I mean, real quick, because I'm kind of like an economics finance nerd, being the lender
Sure.
of the group, right? Like, so what's like a driver, right? Like, what brings? I mean, everybody's heard of Reno, right? You hear Las Vegas, you hear Reno, right? You hear Lake
Right.
Tahoe. Like, what's a driver to somebody moving to Reno? Like,
A lot of people move to Reno for the jobs, for one, because there are so Tesla, Panasonic, Intuit, there's the STED, what do you call it? The Tactical Air Support Aviation Training instead, which is Northern Reno. So there's all these jobs out here. And then on top of the no state income taxes and the lower property taxes and being so close to Lake Tahoe and all the outdoor extracurricular activities and everything. So those are all huge driving factors why somebody would want to move here.
gotcha. So that's kind of cool, right? I mean, I know when we met at EXPCon, we were kind of talking, right? Like, cause I was telling you I came from the middle of nowhere in like northern New York, and you were telling me California to Nevada, and then I just kind of stopped because it's just like awesome. And I'm like, okay, cool. We got to talk about this on the pod for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm happy you're here. So let's talk about the one that a lot more people I would say have heard of. If you hear of like, luxury, Lake Tahoe is up there, right? In my mind, anyway. I just, being a real estate nerd as well. Like, what's hot up there in Lake Tahoe right now? Like, what are you seeing?
I mean, single family homes are selling for over $2.5 million. And I'm talking like a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,800 square foot home. Like the prices up there are pretty insane. And I mean, I would say the incline market is always going to be a strong market. So let me just rephrase that. Incline Village is the town in Lake Tahoe that is on the Nevada side of the lake.
Gotcha.
So we have a ton of different locations on the California side. There's Kings Beach, sorry, there's Tahoe City. We have, South Lake Tahoe. Most of it's on the California side as well. So there's a lot more inventory on that side, whereas like Incline Village and State Line, Nevada are really the only two areas on the Nevada side. And somebody with that kind of money, they're trying to move to Tahoe. They're trying to move for tax breaks. So that's what's keeping the Incline Village market so strong. But a lot of those people are also realizing that there are high end, beautiful luxury locations in Reno as well. So that's pretty interesting to me. A lot of people are deciding to move from Incline Village to Reno in like the South Reno, Galena area, Montreux, areas like that.
What it like? So what is? I mean, the tax thing, right? That makes total sense to me. Jump from the California side to the other side so you don't have to. That's a whole separate conversation you and I could have for probably a long time, I'm sure. That being said, right? Like, okay, so those guys, they come from out of state, right? They're out of state buyers. They come in, they're looking for luxury, they're looking for lower taxes, right? And so what you're saying is it's almost like what out of state buyers are looking for is a nice spot in Reno almost by the
Mhm.
sounds of it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them are. There's not a ton on the market in Incline Village, and a lot of people that are moving from out of town, they think about the winters and can I handle that sort of weather, the high snow levels, shoveling my driveway, or is there going to be, which there are companies, that will come shovel your driveway and stuff. But it's definitely kind of a happy medium is that South Reno area because you're not really having as much snowfall. You're getting a better quality of life per se because you're not having to spend as much money to get the same amount of house. You're getting more amenities, so like you're closer to Costco and things like that people are looking
Gotcha.
for. Yeah.
Cool. And then like good schools in the area, all that type of stuff. Like, is that on the up and up? Like, where are you at? 'Cause, having kids in that market yourself, right? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
It's not really something as realtors we're really supposed to speak on, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah.
But
So, all right, let's
I've
get rid
heard
of that one.
between you and I have heard that South Reno does have good schools.
Well, listen. We'll keep that one on the DL then. How about
Okay.
that? So let's go. Well, not now. Hey, listen. While we're talking about things maybe you shouldn't be talking about. Let's talk about some underrated market trends in the area, right? Like, give me the scoop. I'm coming in. I got some cash. I want to buy there, right? Like, what's some trends you're seeing where you'd like one of your more I wouldn't say intelligent because that's not the word, right? One of your more seasoned clients that's going to come in there. They've bought a couple homes. They're really looking. You know how they're always trying to get that deal, right?
If we're talking like an investor client that
Sure.
is wanting to come in and purchase a property that maybe is an up and coming area, I would say the Fernley market is actually pretty underrated right now. That's
Gotcha.
like 30 minutes east of Reno Sparks, and it's about 20 minutes away from USA Parkway, where that's where the Tesla Gigafactory is, Panasonic,
Gotcha.
all those huge warehouses where there's a ton of jobs. I was talking to a property manager recently, and his client wanted to list his 3-bed, 2-bath home in Fernley for $2,800 for rent, which was pretty standard to what Reno prices are, but Fernley home prices are almost half of what Reno is. Like you could find something out there for 400,000 and it's a really good house, whereas
Hmm.
Reno is closer to the 600 range. He rented that out. He ended up getting it rented out for $2,800.
No kidding.
And I mean, the cap rate on that is very good compared to what you
Yeah.
could find in Reno. So I think
Yeah.
Fernley is an underrated market right now.
That's cool. Yeah. That limited, like, that federal land thing is just like sticking in my brain. It's almost like a kind of a control, like you're
Yeah.
saying. So it almost controls that, limits that supply, and keeps it consistent among those different markets, which is interesting. So
Yeah.
let's circle up, finish up, put a button in the market minute by one last piece. Like, what are some common misconceptions that you hear all the time about buying in Reno, about buying in Lake Tahoe, any of the areas that you work in?
I think people have a like preconceived notion that like the housing market's going to crash and regardless of where you're at. I can just confidently say for Reno, our economy is just so strong that I just can't see that happening at least anytime soon. So I think that's really a really big thing that people say that I'm just like, no, let's look at the numbers here. That's not really gonna happen for Reno. And then for Lake Tahoe, I mean, I think that people see Lake Tahoe as like you have to live in Lake Tahoe in order to enjoy Lake Tahoe.
Gotcha.
And I don't think that's the case either because Andy and I actually lived all around Lake Tahoe. We lived in South Lake, Tahoe City, Incline Village, worked in Truckee for years. And Andy's actually licensed in California as well, so we can cover the entire area. But we moved from there working, multiple jobs, trying to just pay for our housing costs alone. Move to Reno, quality of life is so much higher. We can actually take those days off and go spend them in Lake Tahoe and enjoy the place that we want to be in?
That's super cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I think even that, right? Like, so to me, that sounds like you're almost given a good pathway for somebody that wants to make that same type of journey, right? I mean, it seems to be a good little spot, right? What's that trip look like from where you're at to Tahoe, right? Like, what is that?
35 minutes, 40. Yeah,
So you
pretty good.
said winter. Break that down for me, because where I come from is the tundra. What does it look like? I always think of the desert when I think of where you live.
Yeah, no, Reno is not just the desert. It's so beautiful out here. Snows in Reno are a lot, or sorry, winters in Reno are much more mild than Tahoe winters, but I mean, depending on the year, because it's such a hit or miss. Like the last few years have just been like last winter was super mild. We had, a couple weekends where we got a couple feet of snow,
Gotcha.
but the like I think it was 2021. We had a huge winter where it was like, 20 feet of snow overnight. Pretty
Yeah,
crazy. There was
that's
periods of
crazy.
times where so I used to work in Truckee and I would get stuck in Truckee, wouldn't be able to make it home to Reno because of how bad the roads were. And
No
they'd
kidding.
shut them all down. That was
Do they
crazy.
have like so is it like the South where like if they get any snow, they shut everything down, or do they have snow plows? Do they salt the roads, or do they do all that?
Yeah, they salt, they plow. I mean, it usually takes a good amount of snow for us to close down.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Well,
I
that
enjoy
makes
it. I
sense.
love living somewhere where you get every season. Yeah. In the spring we had flowers, in the summer we get sunshine, fall we get some apple trees and all the beautiful birch trees changing colors, and then winter we get some snow.
So you probably don't get that. Like we have that where I come from. It's just like that 8 month, like just gray, right? Whether it snows, sleets, rains, whatever it is, it's just awful. Gets down to negative, whatever, God knows what, 14, 22, bone chilling, right? All that stuff. I live in Florida. I don't complain about 90 every day. So I'm all about it. I just, do you have like that kind of like Colorado type of weather where like it could snow and then it'll just be like super nice, like 80 degrees the next day, like all the snow melted away type of thing?
Definitely not 80 degrees, but I think yes on the Colorado thing, similar to like, Northern California where it will snow one day and then we call it a bluebird day.
Gotcha.
Where it snows the day before and then it's sunshine the next day. So it's definitely like I don't think I could live in like the Pacific Northwest, because it's a little bit more cloudy, rainy, that sort of thing. But like Nevada is very much like California in the sense that we get a lot of days of sunshine.
Well, that's cool. Well, it's definitely a place I have to visit, and we'll come out and we'll definitely do that and see you and
Yeah,
do all the fun
definitely. You
stuff, right?
gotta get
So,
out here.
but let's roll into some rapid fire, right? And so, I just sent you this. I figured you and I could fire a couple back and forth, right? And so, my favorite like one to start with is going to be for me to you is buyers or sellers.
Well, buyers or sellers? Depends on the type. Depends on the person. I just
Oh, here
like
we
to
go.
work with good
Listen,
people.
this is not a political interview. We don't need the. I just want to know, hey, what do you think, right? Like, what do you prefer working with? Do you like showing somebody a house, or do you want to show up and tell them what the value is and throw some signs in the front yard?
I like both. I think I like buyers are almost less stressful. It's a little bit more of a fun experience, whereas sellers, it's a little bit more on the stressful side of things. I like working with both though. That's such a hard question. And I really am like almost 50-50 in who I work with as well.
No kidding. Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
just, I,
I guess for
all
the
the
sake of that question, I'm just gonna say buyers because I have to answer one.
cool. I mean, man, every single coaching seminar I sat through at EXPCon must have been for sellers. I felt like so. It's interesting, right? Like that's kind of the mantra is everybody's always like listings. I got to get those listings. So it's good to hear that you
You
like the
want
buyer side.
listings, but if you market your listings correctly, you'll get more buyers with it. So that's why you want listings is because you can get both. Buyers, you can typically only get the one category.
Yeah, it fascinates me. Some agents like don't like buyers to a point where like they'll list a house and they just don't want to, they'll refer it. I'm like, why?
Yeah. If Andy was sitting right here, he would say sellers.
Well, hey, dynamic duo.
Balance.
There you go, right? So, okay, another rapid fire question I've got for you would be, you know, do you recommend a team for a new agent immediately, or do you recommend bootstrapping it, getting out there on your own solo, running wild, doing your thing? What do you think? I know it's tough for you, probably, that question, because you kind of had it's almost like a hybrid experience probably for you, right? You kind of had a team slash individual.
Yeah. I really, so I obviously started kind of on a team because I have my husband, but Andy was pretty hard on me. He was very much that person that was like, I'd be like, so what do I do here? What do I write here? And he's like, you're a realtor now, you figure it out, kind of. And that's like that's like how I need to learn and how I enjoy learning. So that helped me. I think that, like, if you get on a team, it needs to be the right team. It needs to be somebody that's coaching you, like, how to develop yourself, how to become a good realtor, how to work, like how do you get leads? How do you just, market yourself, that sort of thing. Whereas a lot of teams, I feel like, are made to just kind of take from the agent, you know? So I think it just really depends on the team. I would recommend interviewing multiple teams before choosing to go on a team if you are. And then if you choose to not join a team, make sure you're joining a brokerage that has a lot of agents in your corner that you can, like, bounce ideas off of, and, like, there's more collaboration in the office. Or, like, with, for instance, EXP, I was with EXP for a long time. Like, that's how I met Nassim and Cheyenne and all of Jacqueline, all of those amazing agents all over the country. If you're able to even, like, surround yourself with people, um, like, socially, but not
Sure.
locally in your market, I think that is super helpful as well.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. One of the things I've learned from you ladies is I like do business with one of you, and then all of a sudden I'm getting comments from the other. Like, you guys all, like, you stick together, right? Like, you have such a strong referral network. I know. Shout out our friend Cheyenne. Her and I always talk about that. Her referral network and how strong it is, and how that's a huge piece, right? So, like, you know, let's because you are so good at building and keeping those connections all over the place. Here's a question, right? Like, so do you think that, as a new agent, it's super important to get into as many type of groups as you can, read through message boards, try to build connections, even digitally, by following people on Instagram, things like that? Like, what's your playbook there for somebody?
I think that it's important to network with agents, like you were saying, social media, Facebook, Instagram, all of these things. But I think also you need to vet them out and find quality people that you're going to connect with as well. Because if you are just connecting with every agent, your name's probably not going to stick with them, and their name's probably not going to stick with you either. But if
Gotcha.
you find, like, for instance, when I first started with EXP, why am I talking about EXP? I'm not even with them anymore. I'm not allowed to say that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Anyways, on Workplace, you'll find agents tagging people who they
Sure.
recommend in certain locations, right? For instance, Facebook, right? You're on Facebook, somebody's like, hey, I'm looking for an agent in Dallas, Texas, or something. And then you see the same names of people who are getting tagged and the people who are tagging those people. Those
Gotcha.
are the ones that you wanna connect with, because those are the ones that are gonna be in your corner as well.
Sure.
So, I think just quality over quantity is important.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, right? And I mean, obviously, that's like anything else too, right? I mean, you can't. There's only so much bandwidth you have for relationships. I know a lot of people that try to do too much, and it's hard. It's hard. But
Yeah.
that being said, it is cool when like, I see your social media content, and like being able to go back and look at like you interacting with that person. Like, I'm like, where the heck she followed you? You guys did a collab video. You did something like that. She shouted you out. It's just kind of cool. And then you make a video at EXPCon where you're traveling and doing your thing and meeting these friends you've made. That's just super unique. So I think it's definitely, and like, by the way, what a fantastic way to build your business, by making friends.
Thank you.
So, but yes. Okay. So my last rapid fire question for you. And then we got to go into a hot topic and we're going to close this thing up. Okay. So you're an investor. Tell me your first story of your first deal and break down what you learned and what you can take away from that to pass on to somebody that wants to do their first deal in your market.
Gosh, I love this story. You've probably seen it on my social media a couple times. Okay, so Andy and I bought our first house when I was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, and we were broke as a joke. Like almost probably zero money in our bank accounts. We were not realtors yet. Andy had just got his license, so he was our realtor at the time. And we wanted to buy a house, and so we reached out to a local lender. She was like, "Well, you don't have cash, but you do have money in your 401k. If you want, you could pull that out, take a loan from yourself. So I think it's tax free. Don't quote me on that, but when you take a loan versus taking a withdrawal, it's different." So we took out a loan from my own retirement account where I'm paying myself back monthly on that loan, but it's much lower interest rate than most loans are. And I'm paying myself back, not a bank.
Yeah, it's nice
So
to
that
pay
kind of
yourself
stuff.
interest, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So we did 3% down. It was a conventional loan and bought our first house. Right after buying it, we had to replace the sewer line. We had to get a new water heater, all these little things that we couldn't have expected, which thank God for Andy's commission check on that. So we got that taken care of, which was fine because we were paying like pretty low mortgage. I mean, our rate was in the fours, I think, at that time. It was 2020.
Cool.
And then in 21, I think it was, we refinanced to like around a 2% rate. So that was amazing. We still have it to this day.
Stellar.
Well,
Nice.
2 years later, we bought our second home. We decided to rent our first property out. We doubled pretty much our mortgage payment. Tenants were paying for our mortgage. We were getting about that same amount back. And for the first year, we were managing it on our own. And about a year and a half later, tenants renewed the lease. Half a year later, after they renewed the lease, tenant reaches out, "Hey, there was a situation that happened. I can no longer afford the mortgage payment." And Andy and I felt for them. And so we were like, "No worries. You guys can break the lease, go find a new property. Don't worry about the security deposit. Don't worry about next month's rent. We got it." Like, we felt really bad for the situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we let that happen. They cleaned the house. It was immaculate. We
Okay.
then were like, "Okay, we're hiring a property manager for our next tenant because this is an investment and it's for our family and for our financial, future, for our children's financial futures. And we can't just do that, You
No, you
just
can't. You got to
really
be,
can't have a
it's
heart as an
hard.
investor."
It's black and white and it's so hard because like I manage, I'm such a hypocrite. I manage my rental and I don't know. It's the same thing, right? I'm always the one saying, "Hey, pay a property manager," because you should try to remove the veil of like yourself, right? Like you said, it is finance. It's no different than you buying stocks and you have a financial guy that's making sure that everything is moving and selling and but like it's just a different form.
Exactly. So if I were to recommend to anybody, if they're going to rent out their property, always hire a property manager. They're not nearly as expensive as the cost burden that you're potentially going to see if you manage it yourself. And I would say the stress load, it's like amazing. We just sit back, collect the rent, and we're good to go.
Yeah, the first of the month is awesome now. That's for sure. I agree. Okay. So what did you like? What were your takeaways from that journey? It sounds like there was a couple hurdles, right? Like, what were some of the takeaways that you were able to get from going through that as an investor?
Yeah, I mean, definitely leverage what you can. So like that for borrowing from our 401k, I mean, I think it was like around $10,000 that we took from it.
Gotcha.
And we have over $100,000 in equity.
Nice.
And I had some people on my Instagram, of course, when I mentioned, you know, taking money out of my 401k, turned it into equity, and they were like, "Well, you would have turned to that $10,000 in X amount over X amount of years." And I'm like, "I'm
It's
sorry,
just
but
so
in
tough.
a 401k, it would have not gone up that quick. It just wouldn't have,
No,
you know?
no.
Maybe in like
It's
30 years or something." But
if you did that, well, you did. and let's say it was 100 grand, right? And let's say that's 10% of your theoretical, right? Like your retirement. And again, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. I've studied this quite a bit myself, and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, okay. He told me he took 10 grand and then, man, the house got foreclosed on and all this. The financial advisor or whoever commented that was right. You just told me you made 100 grand in equity from a $10,000 loan from your 401k. So for those at home that don't understand what that looks like, it looks like this. She takes a loan from money she's already worked really hard for, and she's put into her retirement account. That's her money, right? And as you said, she can borrow some of that money. So she took a loan for that. And when you do that, there's an interest rate attached to that loan. But when you pay that interest, it goes back into your 401k. So if you can take that capital and you could take that and multiply it, which you literally 10x'd your capital. To me, there's zero way for you to do that in the stock market, in the allocations that your 401k was probably in. And whatever, people can comment and hate me for that all they want. That's a really phenomenal rate of return on real estate.
Yeah.
To say
Well,
that
not
about.
only that, but we also are getting 20 or 12,000 a year aside from what our mortgage is being paid off of. So like in the last 4 years, it's 12 grand per year, what times 3, I think it was. So that's like another 36K. So it's like 136.
Yeah.
And then we're actually thinking about selling it. And I want to tell you why we're thinking about selling
Cool.
it is because usually I would recommend probably not doing that because this is a cash flow property. It's a really good investment. It has a very low interest rate. However, we decided to purchase our third home in November and we did a bunch of renovations to it. We also purchased it seller financing. So we got a 4.5% interest rate, really killer deal. So another investment story for another day. And so we ended up using our credit cards to do all the renovations and we have high interest on our credit cards. That house our first investment property, we lived in it for 2 out of the last 5 years. So if we sell it this year before February of next year, we don't have to pay capital gains tax. And we're not going to have any other opportunity to not pay capital gains on that house and to, take those funds. So it's been a really hard decision, but I am like 99% sure that's what we're going to do. But
Yeah,
we'll
that's the
probably.
investor conundrum, in my opinion. It's like, so I got a duplex. It's got a 3.5% rate on it. My day job is what it is, but the truth is, like, as an investor, that's free capital from the bank if it's below 5%. I hate to tell everybody that, especially if it sends you cash flow, that's free. So to me, like, we're not even talking about mortgage pay down. We're not even talking about the tax benefits. We're not talking about any of that. What you're breaking down is even another benefit on top of going in and investing in real estate you live in, because you're talking about taking a homestead exemption is what you're talking about on your capital gain, right? Which is amazing, and again, I'm not a CPA, so I won't break that down. Go follow my guy, Mark J. Kohler. He's the best CPA in the land. I listen to him all the time. Shout out to Mark. But I think ultimately what you're talking about is, I don't know, it's just common practice, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, okay. So let's kind of veer off this because, this is kind of a hot topic, right? And let's go right into another one. And so you're unique because you're like, hey, I like buyers, right? And you also work with sellers. And so you kind of understand the way that it works for you to get paid as an agent, right? Working for a buyer or working for a seller. And so the hot topic today is going to be, okay, we had that big NAR lawsuit, right? And so there's a big shift in the way people get paid for doing the services that you provide, right? And so is it changing what you're seeing, like how buyers and sellers are working with agents? Are you seeing any drawbacks from that? Like what does this look like for you and how has it impacted your business?
I think at the very beginning of the lawsuit, when it was all over the media and people were, only hearing one side to the story, buyers specifically, they were thinking, oh, I need to just reach out now directly to the listing agent to avoid having to pay commission to a buyer's agent. I saw that happening a little bit at first, but I mean, in the last 7 months, because I think that was about 9 months ago, the last 7 months, I would say, things have kind of returned back to normal. I guess the only difference is that now, as a buying agent, you determine your commission versus the listing agent having more of a say in what you're getting. Because
Sure.
before on the MLS, the listing agent and the seller would say, the listing agent would say, hey, I charge 5%, I charge 6%, I charge 20%, whatever somebody's going to charge, right? And they would
Sure.
say, I'm allocating this much to the person that brings the buyer, and I'm allocating this much to me. And the seller would say, okay, cool, I'm signing off on that. Now it's, okay, seller, I'm charging X percent. The buyer's agent might request X percent to X percent, but you don't have to offer it. So we can sign this box that says you're open to negotiating.
Gotcha.
And then from the buyer's agent side, it's like, hey, we're going to make an offer on this property eventually. I'm going to show you these homes, and I'm going to negotiate on your behalf for the seller to cover my fee. If they decide that they don't want to cover my fee, at that point, it's your decision whether you want to pay for me to represent you in this transaction, or we can find a different home that maybe the seller is paying for it. Or maybe they only want to cover a portion of it. And then at that point, you decide, am I worth you paying that extra portion? If it's 3%, maybe they'll do 2, and then my buyers would do 1. Then we just have that conversation up front. And I mean, honestly, it hasn't really changed. I've seen sellers mostly paying for commission. I've seen some sellers trying to not pay for it and then send a couple counters back and forth until they realize that the buyer's not going to buy unless they pay for it. And so then they end up doing it.
Not to steal the mic back from you, but I feel like for me, like my take on this is exactly what you just said. I just feel like this entire thing was unnecessary right from the very beginning. I I think the common practice, right? So like just to simple 6% in commission for every deal. It used to be, hey, like you said, seller, hey, they're paying the 6%, buyer's agent's getting 3, seller's agent's getting 3. Cool. Right now it's like it just muddies all the waters. There's different negotiations that go on with the buyers and their buyer's agent. And oftentimes what happens is like what I see on the buy side is 9 times out of 10, that buyer's agent is worth the 3%. The seller will offer 2 or 2.5. And then you got to go to the client, which, as we know, most of them need a little bit of guidance to get to where they need to be financially. Not to blast anybody, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
It's not X's and O's generally. So for me, the buyers can't pay that 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah.
they really want to, though, because they love the agents, and the buyer's agents are worth that. So I don't know. Like the common fallacy to me was the buyers don't bring anything to the transaction. The seller takes on all the risk. I don't believe that. You got
I
to
don't
pay the
believe
bank.
it.
Got to pay the
Yeah,
bank, right?
exactly. And if you think about it, all of the money is coming from the buyer anyways.
Right.
So, Mr. Seller, are you truly paying for everything? Not really. It's just coming from your net, but the buyer is actually the one bringing you the entire amount of the cost of the home.
You don't have a transaction without a buyer with capital, and whether that capital comes from their bank account, their 4K, or from us. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Somebody is getting paid, and somebody is getting paid to work on that capital or do whatever. And so the
Yeah,
buyer does have risk, right? And so that's why I didn't think it made any sense to begin with, I guess.
this is a bit of a hot take, and since we're talking on hot takes, is recently I have seen some statistics saying that buyer's agents are actually getting paid more now than they used to.
Interesting.
And the whole lawsuit was about commission fixing and, not being transparent and maybe agents charging too much and that sort of thing. But now, stats are saying that realtors are actually getting paid more. So, for instance, I would show maybe a buyer and on the MLS, it would say home is offering 2% commission, right? I would send it 2% commission. That's what I get. That's what the seller's offering, right? Now, agent tells me, oh, my seller's only offering 2.5%. That number means nothing to me because they're also listing the home at 500,000 and I'm also going to offer $20,000 less.
Very true.
And so for instance, actually I just got an offer accepted today 10,000 off the price, $10,000 seller credit. They were only offering 2.5%, and I requested 3%, and they accepted it. So what they say is not really
Sure.
factual. It's not until you get an actual offer in front of them that they crunch the numbers and they decide, okay, this net is what is going to get me to that position I want to be in.
Sure. I mean, one thing it did was open the opportunity for real buyers agents to make more.
Yeah.
Kind of remove that cap. So yeah, I would say that. The one thing I would say too is, listen, I love your strategy. I would say that to every buyer's agent that if they're listening to this, like if you're worth 3%, you should ask for it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even if your buyer has to bring 0.5. I mean, I know a lot of times they can't. I see a ton of 2.5% from seller, right? Like seller's willing to pay 2.5%, which man, that really always irks me because it's like, just pay that other 0.5% to the agent that deserves it. That's bringing their client through this thing, emotionally guiding them through the transaction, jumping the hurdles with you. Like, unless your
Let me
margins
show
are
you
super
why I'm
tight.
worth that 3%. Let me show you why.
Exactly. So I love it. That makes sense to me, right? So hot take, hot topic accomplished, I think. And so that means we got to roll into closing time. This has been a lot of fun. But in closing, let's talk about, the best. We've talked about a lot of different things, right? We talked about investment advice that you've learned through your own experience, right? We've talked about different types of experiences that you've had with your husband where he's been able to kind of give you guidance and things like that, right? But like outside of all of that, right? And you've met so many agents and you've traveled and you've gone and done these different things. What's the best advice that you think that you've received for somebody that's watching this that think, I never even thought about being a real estate agent or getting my license to invest. But like maybe I'm into that, right? Like what advice would you give to them? Like that one nugget that you heard and you're like, whoa, that's golden. What do you got? Share it. Share it with the people.
I feel like most of my biggest takeaways and like best advice are not necessarily real estate related, but they fall into that category for like anybody to use them. So
Cool.
like my favorite things is like learn how to fail fast, learn how to basically every no is one step closer to a yes.
Right.
Take your learnings or sorry, your losses are not losses, they're learnings
Right.
basically. And stuff like that, that's what keeps me going because in real estate, you get told no all the time. I mean, there's 3,500 agents in our market. 3,500. Okay, I'm one of 3,500. What's special about me? Like people are going to say no, they're going to use a different realtor. That's fine. Just you got to pick up and just keep moving forward and take every L as a lesson and take every no as a step closer to a yes. And actually, that makes me think of the realtor specific advice is ask for feedback.
Gotcha.
People do not ask for feedback. If they lose, like let's say you go to a listing appointment or a buyer's consult or whatever it might be, and that client decides to work with somebody else, always figure out the reason why because you're never going to learn from it. You're never going to grow from it. That's my advice.
I love it. One thing I listened to you say, and I remember we didn't touch on it, I really want to, is like we went from the hot topic and then we rolled into your advice, which your advice is fantastic. Anybody listening should take it. But what we talked about was interesting, right? Because we talked about like uniqueness and what makes you you. I know now, like listen, we met and then I started following you, but then I really saw like what really sells you. I mean, you're fantastic with social media, right? So like let's talk about that. Like real quick shout out. What makes you stand out if you go out of the one out of the 3,500 and sit? How do you market the property different than any of those 34.99 other agents, 34.98 because you can't count your husband?
Yeah, right. Now, this is actually another hot take because something that I learned from not getting one of our listings was that discretion is important to some sellers. Some people don't like their property on social media. Some people don't like their property cold call the neighborhood and let them know, hey, it's listed. Some people don't like that. So we always go into a listing appointment and we ask them if discretion is important to them. And if not, are they okay with us promoting their property on social media and things like that? Once they give us the okay with that, then we kind of let them know, hey, My Instagram page, for instance, has over 100,000 views in the last 30 days. And of those 100,000 views, I can see the analytics of where they're coming from. 50% are in California. We have 10% in Colorado. We've got another 5% in Washington. And these are our feeder markets. That's where you want people to see your property. Those are the people that you want to know your property is listed, because those are the people that are considering buying or selling or moving to the area. So I think that's something that sets us apart. And then also our brokerage is amazing. Compass has over 30, I think it's 38,000 agents all over the country. And our top feeder markets, California and Colorado, have some of the largest agent counts.
Cool.
So that's super important as well. They can see all of our private off-market exclusive listings that are not even on the MLS. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, cool. I think we'll just got to close it up with your favorite book or your podcast recommendation you could give, and then your social media handles for everybody to follow you and see that marketing.
What's your podcast called again?
Real Estate is Local.
That's my favorite podcast. Real Estate is Local. The best. The GOAT.
That's what I'm talking about right there. That's a shout out of any
Just
shout
saying.
out I've ever gotten. I love
Just
it.
saying.
Well, real quick though, what's your favorite book? Because I don't write those yet. I'm learning how with AI though. Statements.
Gosh, I love so many books. I'm reading like 5 different books right now. Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod is a good one. I do believe in his practice. I think it's super important, and that will totally elevate any real estate career or whatever career you're in, or just even as a human being. Just following those practices, I think, are super important. What's that one? Never Split the Difference is another good book.
Both of those are on my list to read, so I love that you're recommending them
Okay,
to
so
me.
read
So
them.
awesome. Well, Tristan, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. For anybody that's looking to follow you, where can they find you on social media?
You could find me on Instagram, Tristan_Louise_the realtor. And I'm also on Facebook, Tristan Lipschutz. This is my first and last name.
Cool. Well, I'll leave those down in the description below. Again, I just want to say thank you so much. I know it's been a busy Friday for you. I wanted to thank you for taking some time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, hopefully we'll work together soon.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you much.